close your eyes for a second. Well, obviously, if you're driving or operating heavy machinery right now, please keep them open.
Yeah, safety first, definitely.
Right. But, in your mind's eye, I want you to imagine a tree. And we are not talking about a nice oak in your local park or like a pine tree.
No, nothing like that.
I want you to imagine a tree so unbelievably vast, so incomprehensibly massive, that its roots and its branches are literally holding up the entire universe.
It's hard to even picture the scale of it.
It really is. Picture whole worlds just hanging from its limbs like fruit, and then reach your mind down into the roots.
Right down into the dark.
Exactly. One root plunges into a realm of freezing mist, another goes into a well of pure wisdom, and a third goes into a spring guarded by beings who, well, they control destiny itself.
The Norns, it's such a powerful image.
It is. Now look all the way up to the very top of this tree. There sits an eagle, so ancient it has literally forgotten its own age.
And it has a hawk sitting right between its eyes.
Yeah, just perched there,
Ugh.
staring out into the void. And then way down at the bottom, far below the earth, there's a great serpent,
Nidhogg, just relentlessly gnawing away.
endlessly chewing through the foundation of everything. And right in the middle of all this epic cosmic tension, running frantically up and down the trunk,
Carrying insults.
yes, carrying insults between the eagle and the serpent, is a squirrel.
It really is a breathtaking image to start with.
It's wild.
And the thing you have to understand right out of the gate is that for the ancient Norse people, the farmers, the explorers, the raiders of the cold north.
The people living centuries ago in Scandinavia and Iceland.
Exactly. For them, this tree, which they called Yggdrasil, was not just some fun campfire story.
Wasn't a metaphor.
No, not merely a poetic metaphor for the interconnectedness of life or whatever. It was the literal physical structure of reality.
Like the actual skeleton of the cosmos.
Right. Everything that exists, every god, giant, human being, dwarf, elf, and monster lives somewhere on or around this great ash tree. And, if the tree shakes, the universe quakes.
Which is exactly why we are undertaking this deep dive today. Our mission is to unpack a stack of fascinating source texts about this Norse cosmos.
We really need to build the foundation.
I do. We are looking at the foundational structure of reality for the ancient Norse people. Because if we really want to understand them, and if we want to understand their gods...
Gods like Odin, Thor, Loki.
Right, we can't just list off their names and powers like they're comic book characters.
Yeah, that doesn't do them justice at all.
We get to literally build the universe those gods lived in.
Right.
We need to understand the physics of their world, their creation, and, well, their inevitable doom.
We need to inhabit their reality, yes. And I think it's important to set the tone for you right away.
Absolutely.
This is not going to be, a dry academic textbook reading of mythological trivia.
Nobody wants that.
Exactly. We are stepping into a universe that was born out of fire, out of ice, and out of a violently murdered giant.
Very violently.
It is a world where destiny is entirely fixed by forces older than the gods themselves.
Which is a crazy concept.
It really is. And understanding this physical and spiritual map is the ultimate shortcut to understanding the fierce, unapologetic, and frankly astonishing mindset of the Norse people.
Okay, so let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Or maybe the giant wolf in the room, given the topic.
Oh, fair enough.
Before we start climbing the branches of this cosmic tree, we have to talk about the messy lens of history.
Where this all actually comes from.
Right. Because as I was going through the notes and the historical context for this deep dive, our sources seem incredibly complicated.
They're notoriously tricky to navigate.
They aren't just some unified holy book handed down from the heavens.
Far from it. I mean, almost everything we know about Norse mythology comes to us from two primary, highly complex texts. The first is called the Poetic Edda. This is a compilation of old poems. They are anonymous, and they were passed down orally for generations.
Maybe even centuries, right?
Oh, definitely centuries, across different regions, and were finally written down in Iceland.
Okay, and the second text?
The second text is called the Prose Edda, and this one, unlike the first, has an actual author.
Right, Snorri Sturluson.
Exactly. He was an Icelandic chieftain, poet, politician, and historian.
Okay, and here's where my skepticism just kicks into high gear. Snorri wrote the Prose Edda around the year 1220.
Roughly, yes.
But Iceland had officially converted to Christianity in the year 1000.
That's right.
So our definitive, structured guide to ancient Norse paganism was written by a Christian scholar, more than 200 years after the religion was officially abandoned by his own government.
It sounds problematic when you frame it like that.
It feels wildly unreliable. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like someone trying to understand 1990s internet culture. You know, the raw early days of dial-up and chaotic message boards.
The Wild West of the internet.
Yeah. But the summary is being written by someone in the year 2200 who only has a few fragmented, out-of-context chat logs.
That's actually a fantastic analogy.
Like how much of the reality is lost in translation there, or, deliberately altered to fit his worldview.
It's a vital question, and it's something historians wrestle with constantly. Snorri was indeed a Christian, writing in a Christianized medieval world.
So he had an agenda.
Well, his motivation wasn't necessarily to write a religious text. He was looking back at these ancient stories partly out of a desire to preserve the cultural history of Iceland.
Okay, that makes sense.
But more practically, he wrote it as a handbook for poets.
A handbook. Why did poets need a handbook for old myths?
Because in his time, Icelandic poetry still relied heavily on kennings.
Right, I saw those everywhere in the sources. Explain kennings for us, because they can be really confusing.
Kennings are these intricate, compound, poetic metaphors that heavily referenced the old myths.
Give me an example.
So instead of simply saying the word sword, a poet might say the bloodworm.
Oh, wow, that's visceral.
It is. Or instead of gold, they might say Sif's hair or the otter's ransom.
But if you didn't know the story behind Sif's hair...
Exactly. If you didn't know the deeply embedded pagan myths behind those specific phrases, you couldn't understand or write the poetry.
So the art form was dying because people were forgetting the lore.
Right. Snorri was trying to save the poetic art form, which meant he had to explain the stories that were already incredibly old, fragmented, and, fading from cultural memory.
But didn't he also try to rationalize the gods?
He did.
Because I noticed in some of the prologues, he almost tries to explain the Norse gods away as just like ancient Trojan heroes who wandered north and were mistaken for divine beings.
Yes, he does do that. That's a classic medieval Christian technique called euhemerism.
Euhemerism.
Right. It's a way of explaining pagan gods as just exaggerated historical kings.
So he wasn't saying they were real gods.
No, Snorri was walking a tightrope. He wanted to preserve the myths without being accused of promoting heresy by the church.
Makes total sense for a politician.
Exactly. So what this means for us is that we are looking through a cracked, distorted window.
A Christian window looking at a pagan world.
Yes. The mythology Snorri presents in the Prose Edda is likely much tidier, much more organized and systematized than what actually existed.
Because the real Viking Age was probably a lot more messy.
Oh, absolutely messy, contradictory, and filled with deeply regional variations.
Meaning there was no single Norse Bible.
Not even close.
Like a farmer in a remote valley in Norway in the year 800 might have had a very different understanding of Thor than, say, a sailor in Iceland.
Or a chieftain in Denmark, absolutely. The stories morphed over time and geography.
So whenever we say the Norse believe something in this deep dive, you have to hold that phrase very lightly.
Extremely lightly. It is far more accurate to say, oh, this is what survives in our sources.
It is a powerful reminder to always question the lens through which history is recorded.
It really is. But even with that Christian filter, and even with centuries of oral decay, the material that survives is incredible.
Oh, it describes one of the most imaginative, visceral cosmologies any human culture has ever produced.
Unquestionably.
Well, keeping that cracked window in mind, let's look at the creation story that sits on the other side of the glass.
The genesis of everything.
Right. How does the surviving lore say this all began?
Yeah.
Because it certainly doesn't start with a garden or an all-powerful being speaking light into existence.
No, not at all. It starts with an environment of profound extremes.
Extremes in what way?
Well, in the beginning, the sources tell us there was no earth, no sky, no sand, no sea.
Just nothing.
There was only a vast, yawning emptiness, a magical void called Ginnungagap.
Ginnungagap. But a void implies total nothingness. This wasn't an empty vacuum, was it?
No, it was a void pregnant with potential energy, because it was bounded by two terrifying realms on either side.
Okay, lay out the map for us.
To the north of this void lay Niflheim. This was a region of pure ice, freezing mist, absolute darkness, and brutal cold.
Sounds lovely.
Very welcoming. And to the south lay Muspelheim, a region of roaring fire, intense heat, and endless flame.
And that one was guarded by a giant, right?
Yes, a primordial fire giant named Surt.
So ultimate cold in the north, ultimate heat in the south, and they are just sitting there on opposite sides of this abyss.
For unimaginable stretches of time, yes. But eventually, the elements from these two realms began to reach into the void.
Like a slow creep.
Exactly. The freezing rime ice and venomous rivers of Niflheim pushed southward, while the sparks and glowing heat of Muspelheim blew northward.
And they meet in the middle.
In that middle space, Ginnungagap, the ice and the fire collided.
The ultimate clash.
Right. Where the burning heat touched the freezing frost, the ice began to melt and drip. And from those melting, venomous drops of rime ice, the spark of life caught.
It's almost like a violent cosmic chemistry experiment. The clash of thermodynamic extremes creates life.
That's a great way to put it.
And the first thing that emerges from this dripping, welting ice is not a god.
No, gods come later. The first being to emerge was an enormous primordial frost giant named Ymir.
Ymir. And he was sort of a strange being, right?
He was a hermaphroditic entity, entirely self-sufficient.
Meaning he could reproduce on his own.
Exactly. As Ymir slept and sweated in the heat blowing from Muspelheim, more giants were actually born directly from his body.
Literally sweating out children.
A male and female grew from under his left arm, and his legs mated with each other to produce a six-headed son.
Okay, that is so bizarre.
It is. But these beings were the ancestors of all the Jotnar, the giants.
But Ymir wasn't alone in the void. There is another creature that forms from the melting ice. And I have to admit, it's one of my favorite, most bizarre details in all of world mythology.
I think I know what you're referring to. Audhumla.
The giant cosmic space cow.
Yes, the primeval cow.
I mean, it can certainly sound absurd to modern ears, a giant space cow floating in the void.
It does, but we have to remember the cultural context of the people telling these stories.
Right, they were farmers.
Exactly. To an ancient pastoral people, a cow represents ultimate nourishment, wealth, and survival.
It's life itself.
So Audhumla fed the massive giant Ymir. The sources say 4 rivers of milk ran from her udders.
4 rivers.
Yes. But the cow herself needed sustenance. I mean, she had to eat, too.
But there's no grass. There's no earth yet.
Right, so she fed by licking the salty, rime-covered blocks of ice around her.
I just love the image of this gargantuan cow slowly licking the frozen universe.
And her licking was actually an act of creation in itself.
How so?
The sources say that on the first day of licking the salty ice, human-like hair emerged from the block.
Just hair sticking out of the ice?
Yep. On the second day, a head appeared.
Okay.
And on the third day, she licked free an entire, perfectly formed being who had been frozen inside the ice.
Wow.
This was Buri, the first ancestor of the gods.
So Buri is born from the cow licking the ice.
Essentially, yes. Buri then had a son named Bor, and Bor ended up marrying a giantess named Besla.
So the gods and the giants are mixing right from the very beginning.
Right from the start. And Bor and Besla had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve.
Okay, so now the stage is set. We have 2 distinct camps in the void. We have the endlessly multiplying frost giants descended from Ymir's sweat, and we have this new lineage of gods led by Odin and his 2 brothers.
That's the setup.
And this is where the Norse creation myth takes a massive, shockingly violent turn.
It really does. The gods, Odin, Vili, and Ve, look around and realize that the universe cannot remain in this chaotic, formless state.
They want order.
Exactly. The giants are forces of wild, unchecked multiplication and raw nature. They are chaos.
So what do the gods do?
So the 3 brothers turn on Ymir, the primordial giant, the very first living being in existence, and they murder him.
And it isn't just a simple, quiet assassination. The text describes an absolute bloodbath.
The slaughter was immense. In fact, it was so immense that the blood pouring from Ymir's massive wounds created a literal cosmic flood.
A flood of blood.
A flood of gore that drowned almost the entire race of frost giants.
Almost the entire race. But not all of them.
Right. Only one giant, a guy named Bergelmir, managed to escape with his wife.
How did they survive a cosmic flood?
The sources say they survived by climbing into a wooden box or maybe a hollowed-out log and riding out the flood. And from them, the race of giants eventually repopulated.
Let me just stop you right there because going back to our earlier point about Snorri and his Christian lens.
I see where you're going with this.
Right. A great flood that wipes out a wicked race, and a single family survives by floating in a wooden vessel to repopulate the earth.
It does ring a bell.
That sounds suspiciously like Noah's Ark. Like exactly like Noah's Ark. Is this a genuine pagan myth, or is Snorri just quietly slipping the book of Genesis into the Norse cosmos?
It is a subject of intense academic debate, as you can imagine.
I bet.
Many scholars point to that exact parallel and argue that Snorri was undoubtedly influenced by the biblical flood narrative.
Molding the material to fit his audience.
Right, shaping the Norse material to echo a framework his Christian audience would instantly recognize and validate.
That makes total sense.
However, and this is a big however, flood myths are also incredibly common in indigenous cultures worldwide.
Oh, that's true.
They often stem from ancient, deeply buried cultural memories of rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age.
So it could be authentic.
The truth is likely a blend. The pagan Norse probably did have a myth about Ymir's blood drowning the giants.
But Snorri maybe polished it up.
Exactly. Snorri may have highlighted or shaped the specific wooden box survival element to perfectly align with Noah.
It's the cracked window in action.
Perfectly said.
Regardless of its origins, what the gods do next with Ymir's corpse is undeniably uniquely Norse. They don't just leave his massive body to rot in the void.
No, they use it as raw material.
Which is just so incredibly grim.
It is a staggering piece of visceral world building. They literally hauled his massive corpse into the center of the void, and they built the physical universe out of it.
Walk us through the anatomy of this.
So they took Ymir's flesh, and that became the soil and the earth.
Okay.
They took his unbroken bones, and those became the huge mountain ranges.
Right.
His shattered bones, his teeth, and his crushed jaws became the rocks, boulders, and pebbles scattered everywhere.
They used every piece of him.
They did. They took his blood, the floodwaters, and used it to form the oceans, the lakes, and the deep seas that encircle the world.
And the sky above us is even more gruesome.
Yes. They took Ymir's massive hollowed-out skull, lifted it high above the earth, and fashioned it into the great dome of the sky.
Just a giant bone dome over everything.
Exactly. And to ensure it stayed up and didn't crash down, they placed 4 dwarves at the 4 inner corners of the skull.
Sort of like living pillars.
Right, and they named these dwarves North, South, East, and West.
That is amazing. And the clouds.
Oh, they scooped up Ymir's scattered, squishy brains, threw them high into the air, and those became the harsh, churning clouds.
Gross.
Very. And finally, they needed light, so they caught sparks and glowing embers that were blowing in from the fire realm of Muspelheim, and they embedded those sparks high inside the skull sky to become the sun, the moon, and the stars.
When you step back and really look at this, the psychological implications are just profound.
They really are.
Because to believe this is to view the world in a radically different way than a modern person does.
Absolutely.
There was no divine voice saying, let there be light.
No gentle shaping of clay in a quiet, peaceful garden.
Right. The ground beneath their feet, the dirt they farmed, was quite literally dead giant flesh. The sky above them was a bone dome. The clouds bringing the rain were rotting brains.
It tells us so much about them. It tells us that the Norse didn't view the act of creation as an inherently good or peaceful event.
Creation was violence.
Creation was an act of necessary violence. It was the brutal, bloody structuring of chaos into order.
The universe is just a dead body.
A dead body built by gods who started out with blood on their hands. Remember, they committed the ultimate act of kinslaying to forge reality.
Because they were partly descended from giants themselves.
Exactly. This perfectly contextualizes why the Norse culture was so comfortable with violence, hardship, and the incredibly harsh realities of their Scandinavian environment.
Violence wasn't an aberration in their world.
No, it was the mechanism of creation. It was baked into the very fabric of reality.
Okay, so we have the physical earth made of flesh, surrounded by a sea of blood. But where do human beings fit into this picture?
That's a great question.
Because we weren't made from Ymir's body, were we? We aren't little giant flesh creatures.
No, humanity's origin comes a little bit later, and it's actually much quieter compared to the roaring murder of Ymir.
Okay, how did it happen?
The myths tell us that after the earth was shaped, the gods Odin and his brothers were walking along a seashore.
Just strolling on the new beach.
Right. And there, washed up on the beach, they found 2 lifeless logs. Just 2 pieces of dead driftwood.
Driftwood.
The sources specifically identify them as an ash tree and an elm tree. The gods saw potential in this dead wood, and they each decided to bestow a gift upon them.
So what did they give them?
Well, Odin gave them breath and the spark of life. Another brother gave them consciousness, intelligence, and the ability to move.
Like giving them a mind.
Exactly. And the third brother gave them their physical senses, the ability to speak, hear, and see, along with the warmth of blood.
And those 2 pieces of driftwood just stood up.
They stood up as the first man and the first woman. Ask and Embla.
Ask and Embla.
Yes. Ask translating to ash, and Embla likely meaning elm or vine.
You know, I find this deeply moving. I really do.
It is a very different origin story.
It is. In other religious traditions, humans are made in the divine image of a perfect creator, right? Placed as the supreme masters of the earth.
The pinnacle of creation.
Yeah. And modern astrophysics tells us we are made of majestic stardust. But in the Norse worldview, we are literally cosmic beach debris.
Flotsam and jetsam.
We are flotsam that washed up on the shore of a dead giant's blood, given life on a whim by a couple of passing gods.
It is an incredibly humbling perspective.
Very humbling.
It places humanity not at the arrogant center of the universe, but as a small, fragile part of a much larger, overwhelming cosmos.
We're just trying to survive in it.
Exactly. And it also highlights a recurring, deeply important theme in Norse thought,
Which is?
the sacred connection between humanity, life, and trees.
Oh, right.
We come from wood. The first breath of human life was breathed into timber. This wasn't lost on the Norse people.
You imagine that.
When a Viking-age sailor ran his hand along the wooden hull of his longship, or a farmer walked through a dark forest of ancient ash trees, they weren't just looking at lumber.
They were looking at their origins.
They were looking at their cousins. They were looking at the very material of their own souls.
Which brings us perfectly to the ultimate tree.
Yggdrasil.
We've built the physical earth from Ymir's flesh. But all of this, the earth, the realms of fire and ice, the oceans, it all needs a structure to hold it together.
It needs scaffolding.
Right. So let's zoom out and look at that scaffolding.
All right,
Let's
good.
talk about Yggdrasil.
Okay, so Yggdrasil is the world tree. It's an immense evergreen ash tree located at the absolute center of the cosmos.
It's the axis.
Yes, its branches extend over all the worlds and reach up high above the heavens. The well-being of the entire universe depends entirely on the health of this single tree.
But the name itself, Yggdrasil, has a really eerie translation when you dig into the etymology.
It does.
Because it doesn't mean world tree or great ash, does it?
No, the most widely accepted translation is actually Odin's horse.
Odin's horse.
Yes.
Huh.
Yig is one of the many, many names used for Odin. It translates roughly to the terrible one or the fearsome one.
Cheerful.
Very. And Drasil means a horse, a steed, or even a walker.
But why on earth would a giant cosmic tree be called the terrible one's horse? That makes no sense initially.
To understand that, we really have to look at the deeply shamanic side of Odin.
Odin wasn't just a warrior king.
Not at all. Odin was a god absolutely obsessed with acquiring hidden knowledge, and the most powerful knowledge in the cosmos was the magic of the runes.
The runes weren't just an alphabet.
No, they were symbols that didn't just represent sounds, but actually manipulated the fabric of reality itself.
Like code for the universe.
Basically. But to gain the runes, Odin had to undergo a horrific self-sacrifice. He literally hung himself from the windswept branches of Yggdrasil.
He hung himself.
He pierced his own side with his spear, Gungnir, and he hung there for 9 entire days and 9 nights.
That is brutal.
It was. He had no bread, no mead. He offered himself to himself.
It's an agonizing image of asceticism. And in Old Norse poetic terms, a person hanging from the gallows was said to be riding the gallows.
All right.
The gallows tree was the hanged man's horse.
Exactly the connection. So the world tree is Odin's horse because it is the cosmic gallows upon which he suffered.
He rode the tree.
He rode the boundary between life and death to steal the secrets of the universe from the dark void below.
Wow.
And when he finally looked down into the depths and grasped the runes, screaming, he fell from the tree, changed forever.
So the tree bears his name because of that ultimate sacrifice. Let's map out the anatomy of this tree, because it's not just a big trunk and some branches.
No, it's highly structured.
It's defined by 3 massive cosmic roots that stretch into 3 very different realms, and each root anchors near a critical well or spring.
The spatial geography is complex, and the sources honestly sometimes contradict each other.
As they do.
But generally, we see 3 primary roots. One root stretches up to the realm of the gods, Asgard.
Okay, so that's root number 1.
Beside this root is the Well of Erd, or the Well of Fate. This is where the gods actually hold their daily council.
They meet there every day.
Yes, and it's guarded by the Norns, the weavers of destiny. We will absolutely return to them later as they are central to the entire Norse philosophy.
The Norns are crucial. Okay, so where does the second root go?
The second root reaches down into Jotunheim, the realm of the giants.
The wilderness.
That's right. And beside that root is the Well of Mimir.
Mimir.
Mimir is an ancient, shadowy being renowned for his unparalleled wisdom. And the waters of his well contain pure, unfiltered knowledge and understanding.
And this is the well where Odin famously traveled, right?
Yes, Odin was desperate for an edge against the coming apocalypse, so he goes to Mimir.
He needs wisdom.
But Mimir told him he could only have a single drink, and the price was incredibly steep.
What did he ask for?
Odin had to physically rip out one of his own eyes and drop it into the water as a pledge.
He hung himself for 9 days for the runes, and then he ripped out his own eye for a drink of wisdom.
Yes.
It just shows how relentlessly driven Odin is. I mean, he isn't a benevolent father figure sitting comfortably on a fluffy cloud.
Not even a little bit.
He is an anxious, terrified god who will literally mutilate himself for any scrap of information that might save his world.
That underlying anxiety is a defining trait of Odin, and really of the Norse cosmos as a whole. They are always on edge.
So what about the third route?
The third route reaches deep down into the freezing, dark, primordial realm of Niflheim.
Back to the ice.
Yes, and under this route is a massive, churning spring called Hvergelmir.
Vergum.
It translates to the roaring kettle. It is the primal source of all the great rivers in the world.
And while these routes and wells are fascinating, what I find most captivating is that Yggdrasil is not a static piece of wood.
Not at all.
It is an entire, bustling, chaotic ecosystem. It is teeming with animals that are constantly interacting with it.
Let's talk about the animals.
At the very top, in the highest branches, there is a giant eagle,
And sitting right between the eagle's eyes is a hawk named Vedfulnir.
which is just this strange, specific detail.
It is. Meanwhile, all the way at the bottom, down in the dark mist of Niflheim, gnawing relentlessly on that third root is a massive dragon or serpent,
Nidhogg.
Nidhogg. The name translates to malice striker. And Nidhogg isn't alone. The sources mention countless other smaller serpents down there with him, all tearing at the roots of the tree.
Then you have 4 magical stags running around the branches.
Right, they are stretching their necks up and constantly eating the green leaves and tearing at the bark.
And we cannot forget the most active participant in this entire ecosystem.
What?
The squirrel.
The squirrel.
I have to say, Ratatoskar is quite possibly my favorite detail in all of world mythology.
He's certainly memorable.
Because in the middle of this sacred, awe-inspiring cosmic structure that holds reality together, there's just this petty little squirrel.
Just running around.
His sole purpose in the universe is to run frantically up and down the trunk, carrying insults back and forth between the majestic eagle at the top and the terrifying dragon at the bottom.
He's an instigator.
He's literally a mythological internet troll. He just keeps the cosmic blood feud going by running down and saying, "Hey, Nidhogg, you wouldn't believe what the eagle just said about your mother."
It's absurd.
It is so incredibly relatably human.
It does inject a necessary dose of mundane chaos into the epic scale of the myth. But if we look deeper into this ecosystem, past the humor of the squirrel, it reveals a profound philosophical truth about the Norse universe.
What's the truth?
Think about what is actually happening to Yggdrasil. The serpent is chewing through its roots from below. The stags are stripping its foliage and biting its branches from above.
The trunk is rotting.
The great tree of reality is under constant, unyielding assault. It is wearing away, suffering, and decaying every single day.
It's an ancient understanding of entropy.
Exactly.
The universe isn't a perfect static machine that just runs smoothly forever once you wind it up. It's a living thing that is slowly breaking down.
Precisely the point. The universe requires constant tending just to survive.
Who tends to it?
The myths tell us that the Norns, the women at the Well of Fate, have to scoop up the magical, purifying mud and water from their well every single day.
And do what with it?
They splash it over the trunk of Yggdrasil to stop it from rotting away entirely. If they stopped their work for even a single day, the cosmos would collapse.
Oh, wow.
It heavily reflects the reality of the people who believed in it. In a harsh Scandinavian climate, survival meant constant work.
You couldn't just sit back.
No, you had to repair the roof, you had to chop the wood, you had to salt the meat. The moment you stopped fighting entropy, the winter would literally kill you.
So the gods in the cosmic tree were fighting the exact same battle against decay that the farmers were.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense of their worldview. Okay, so Yggdrasil is the framework, the suffering skeleton of reality. But what actually hangs on these branches?
The 9 worlds.
Right, the sources always talk about the 9 worlds. I want us to take a comprehensive tour of these realms and the beings that inhabit them. Let's start near the top with the most famous one.
Asgard.
Asgard.
Asgard is the high enclosure, the home of the Aesir. This is the primary tribe of the gods. This is where you find Odin, Thor, Frigg, Balder, and the rest.
And it is often pictured in modern media as this gleaming, peaceful city of gold, right? Like a heavenly paradise.
Yes, but that's a misconception. The most important architectural feature of Asgard is that it is a heavily fortified bunker.
A bunker.
It is surrounded by massive, imposing, impregnable walls. The gods built Asgard as a stronghold to protect themselves from the giants, who are their eternal existential enemies.
And the story of how those walls actually got built tells you everything you need to know about the morality of these gods.
It really does.
They're not sitting on clouds playing harps, handing down moral commandments to mortals.
Not in the slightest. The myth of the wall builder is incredibly revealing.
Walk us through it.
Well, shortly after Asgard was established, a mysterious builder arrived. He's often assumed to be a giant in disguise.
Naturally.
And he offered to build the gods an impregnable fortress wall. But his price was astronomical.
What did he want?
He demanded to marry the goddess Freya, and he wanted to literally take the sun and the moon from the sky.
Which would plunge the universe into eternal darkness and cost them one of their most powerful, important goddesses.
It was a steep price, but the gods, heavily influenced by Loki's cunning advice, agreed to the deal.
Why would they agree to that?
Because they intentionally gave the builder an impossible deadline. They gave him only one single winter to finish the massive wall, and they said he could have no help from any other man.
So they thought he'd fail.
Right. They assumed he would fail, they'd get a massive chunk of a fortress wall built for free, and they wouldn't have to pay him a thing.
But there was a catch.
The builder had a magical stallion named Svadilfari.
A super horse.
Yes. This horse was stronger than a dozen men, hauling massive boulders through the night. And with only 3 days left before the first day of summer, the wall was nearly complete.
The gods panicked.
Utterly panicked. They were about to lose the sun, the moon, and Freya because of a bad bet.
So who do they blame?
They turn on Loki, since it was his idea to take the bet in the first place, and they threaten him with a horrible, agonizing death unless he fixes the problem.
Loki, being the ultimate trickster and shapeshifter, has to come up with a plan fast.
He decides the only way to stop the builder is to stop the horse.
So what does he do?
He transforms himself into a beautiful young mare in heat. He trots out into the forest, and he seduces Svadilfari.
He distracts the horse.
The stallion breaks its harness and chases the mare into the woods all night. Without his horse, the builder cannot finish the wall in time.
And when the builder realizes he's been cheated by the gods, he flies into a terrifying giant rage.
He reveals his true nature.
But the gods don't apologize or try to negotiate a settlement, do they?
No, they immediately call for Thor.
And Thor arrives.
Thor arrives, swings his hammer, Mjolnir, and shatters the giant's skull into fragments.
They literally skipped out on the contractor's bill by assassinating him.
It's a brutal reality.
It's hilarious but terrible.
The very walls that protect the gods' home, the ultimate symbol of their divine order, were built on a foundation of a scam, a broken oath, and a murder.
And he gets weirder for Loki.
Oh, yes. Furthermore, Loki, while he was in mare form, eventually gave birth to an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir.
He gave birth.
He did, and Sleipnir became Odin's legendary fastest steed.
The Norse gods lie. They cheat and they kill to protect their stronghold.
They are deeply flawed beings, operating in a world where survival often trumps any sense of modern honor.
Okay, so Asgard is this fortified bunker. But it isn't entirely isolated, right? It is connected to our world by a bridge.
The Bifrost, the burning rainbow bridge.
And standing guard over that bridge is Heimdall.
Heimdall is a fascinating, eerie figure.
Tell us about him.
He is the ultimate cosmic watchman. He lives in a fortress right at the very edge of heaven where the bridge meets Asgard.
And he has some crazy powers.
The sources say he requires less sleep than a bird. He can see for hundreds of miles perfectly, whether it is blazing day or pitch black night.
And his hearing.
His hearing is so acute he can hear the grass growing out of the dirt and the wool growing on the backs of sheep.
He is standing there as the ultimate early warning system because he possesses a specific item.
The Jallarhorn, the yelling horn.
That horn is the ticking clock for the apocalypse.
It really is. Heimdall is simply waiting, eyes locked on the horizon, for the day the giants marshal their forces and march on Asgard.
And when he blows it.
When he raises that horn and blows it, the sound will be heard in all the 9 worlds. And it signifies that Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, has officially begun.
Chilling. All right. From Asgard, we cross that burning bridge down to Midgard, our world.
The realm of humanity.
The name Midgard literally translates to the middle enclosure.
Yes, and the concept of an enclosure is vital. It implies a fence, a barrier.
Right.
Midgard is the civilized space, protected by the gods, and it is surrounded by a massive, impassable, dark ocean.
And living in the depths of that ocean is Jormungandr.
The Midgard serpents.
This creature is one of the monstrous children of Loki, right?
Yes, Odin threw it into the sea when it was small, hoping to get rid of it, but it grew.
It grew a lot.
It grew to such an unimaginable size that it wraps all the way around the entire earth and actually bites onto its own tail.
Which means this serpent isn't just a scary sea monster for sailors to worry about.
No, it is a structural, load-bearing element of the world.
It is a literal booby trap.
It is. The tension of its coiled body is holding the boundaries of the oceans together. The prophecy says that the moment Jormungandr lets go of its tail, it will thrash, the oceans will rise up and flood the land, and the world will end.
And Jormungandr is the eternal, destined enemy of Thor.
Exactly. Thor is the protector of humanity, the defender of the middle enclosure, and he and the world-encircling serpent are fated to face each other at the end of time.
So beyond the ocean, outside of our protected middle yard, lies Jotunheim, the land of the giants.
The outer realms.
Now, I think we really need to clarify something here, because modern pop culture has severely skewed our understanding of what a giant actually is in Norse mythology.
It really has. The Old Norse word is Jotnar, and translating it simply as giant is highly misleading.
Because it makes us think of big, lumbering, dim-witted brutes, like the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk.
Right, like big, stupid men. But the Jotnar were not just oversized beasts, they were the primordial, terrifying forces of nature.
They represented the environment.
They represented the freezing winter, the crushing ocean depths, the avalanche, the wild storms. They were the untamed, hostile wilderness that the Norse people battled every single day.
They are older than the gods, as we established with Ymir.
Yes.
The gods are constantly trying to build civilization, order, laws, and boundaries. The giants are the chaos of the natural world, always threatening to break down those walls and reclaim it.
So the conflict between the gods and the giants is not a simple modern binary of good versus evil, like angels and demons.
It's much more complex than that.
It is order versus wild chaos, civilization versus wilderness. And it's incredibly complicated by the fact that they constantly intermarry.
Right. I mean, Odin's mother was a giantess.
Yep.
Thor, the great giant killer himself, his mother was Jord. The earth itself, often categorized as a giantess.
True.
The god Freyr literally gives up his magical sword just to marry a giantess he fell in love with. So it's order versus chaos, but they're constantly dating each other.
It is an intricate, messy, deeply codependent relationship.
They need each other.
The gods need the raw power and the ancient wisdom of the giants, while simultaneously fighting to keep them from destroying the world.
The giants represent everything uncontrollable in the universe.
And the gods are constantly trying to manage that wildness, knowing that one day the wildness is destined to win.
Okay, we've mentioned Asgard, Midgard, and Jotunheim, but the 9 worlds are broader than that. Let's briefly touch on some of the others to give the full scope. There is Vanaheim.
Vanaheim is the home of the Vanir, the second tribe of gods.
The second tribe. Wait, so the Aesir aren't the only gods?
No. While the Aesir and Asgard are gods of war, power, and societal order, the Vanir are older deities associated with fertility, wealth, magic, and the deep earth.
And the Aesir and the Vanir actually fought a massive, devastating war at the dawn of time, didn't they?
They did. It was the first war in the world.
Who won?
Well, the Aesir fought with weapons and brute force, while the Vanir fought with powerful, subtle magic. The war eventually ended in a stalemate. Neither side could win.
So they made a truce.
To seal the peace, they exchanged hostages. The Vanir sent their most prominent gods Njord, the god of the sea, and his twin children, Freyr and Freya, to live in Asgard.
And they just stayed there.
They became fully integrated with the Aesir, but their origin is from this entirely different nature-focused realm of Vanaheim.
Okay, then we have Alfheim, the realm of the Light Elves.
The elves are somewhat mysterious in the surviving texts. They are described as beings more beautiful than the sun, deeply connected to nature and the gods.
And Alfheim has a funny origin story, right?
Alfheim was actually given to the god Freyr as a tooth gift.
A tooth gift, like a present given when an infant cuts their first tooth.
Exactly.
I love that a god's baby gift is an entire dimensional realm. Like, here you go, kid, have a universe.
It's quite the present.
Now, arguably one of the most important realms for the god's actual survival is Svartalfheim, or Nidavellir, the realm of the dwarves.
Oh, the dwarves play a vital, irreplaceable role in this cosmos.
They really do.
They live deep underground, in the rocks and caves. They are the ultimate cosmic engineers and craftsmen. They mine the earth and forge the greatest treasures in existence.
It seems like every single time the gods mess up or they need a miracle weapon to save their lives, they can't do it themselves.
Never.
They have to swallow their pride, go down into the dirt, and make some shady bet with a dwarf to bail them out.
The entire arsenal of the gods comes from the dwarves. Let me give you an example.
Please do.
When Loki maliciously cut off all the golden hair of Thor's wife Sif while she was sleeping,
Just a terrible prank.
Thor threatened to break every bone in Loki's body unless he fixed it, so Loki went to the dwarves.
Because Loki can't fix it himself.
Right. Not only did the dwarves spin real gold into living hair for Sif, but they also forged Odin's spear, Gungnir, which never misses its mark,
Right.
and a magical ship, Skidbladnir, which can fold up and fit in your pocket.
That's incredibly handy.
But Loki couldn't stop there. He bet his own head against another pair of dwarf brothers, Brokbar and Sindri, that they couldn't make better items than the first dwarves did.
He bet his own head. Typical Loki.
And despite Loki transforming into a fly and repeatedly biting the dwarves as they worked the forge to try and mess them up,
He's literally biting their eyelids while they forge.
yes, but they still produced miracles. They made a golden boar that shines in the dark, and Draupnir, a magical golden ring that replicates itself every 9 nights, ensuring endless wealth.
Endless wealth.
And finally, they forged Thor's hammer, Mjolnir.
The ultimate weapon.
But because of Loki the fly biting the dwarf's eyelid at the last second, the handle of the hammer was actually cast too short, making it a one-handed weapon.
So it was a mistake.
A flaw, yes. Yet it became the most powerful weapon in existence, the only thing keeping the giants at bay.
The gods are entirely dependent on the technology and the magic of the dwarves, yet they constantly treat them with disdain.
They really do. Oh, and Loki even managed to get out of losing his head at the end of that bet.
How did he get out of it?
By arguing that they couldn't take his head without cutting his neck, and his neck wasn't part of the bet.
So the dwarves retaliated by just sewing Loki's lips shut with a leather thong.
A wonderfully brutal settlement.
Very satisfying for the dwarves, I'm sure. Now, rounding out the 9 worlds, we have the primordial extremes. We started with the fire of Muspelheim and the ice of Niflheim.
Right.
And finally, sitting far below the earth, we have the realms of the dead. I want to spend some time here, because the modern conception of a binary heaven and hell has completely warped how we view the Norse afterlife.
It is vastly more layered and complex than a simple moral reward for the good and punishment for the wicked.
So let's break it down. Start with the famous one.
The Halla. This is Odin's great hall in Asgard.
The warrior paradise.
Its roof is made of shields, its rafters are spears, but it wasn't a paradise for everyone who was a good person.
Not at all.
It was an exclusive barracks for a select group of warriors who died bravely in battle, chosen from the battlefield by Odin's spirits, the Valkyries.
And even then, Odin doesn't get all the heroes, does he? He only gets half of the slain.
That's right, the goddess Freya gets the first pick of the dead warriors.
Which is a huge detail people miss.
Yes, and they go to her beautiful realm, Folkvang. Both Valhalla and Folkvanger are places where warriors go to feast, fight each other all day, heal by evening, and prepare.
Prepare for what?
Because they aren't resting in peace. They are Odin's drafted army, preparing for the final apocalyptic battle of Ragnarok.
They're basically immortal soldiers on standby. But what about everyone else?
The common people.
Yeah. What if you were an incredible warrior who simply got an infection from a cut? Or a farmer who provided for their village? Or a mother who died in childbirth? Or someone who just died of old age in their bed? Where did they go?
They generally went to a realm called Hell.
And this is where we have to explicitly decouple the Old Norse word from the modern Christian concept of hell.
Yes, we really do. The realm is called Hell, and it is ruled by a terrifying goddess who is also named Hel. She is said to be half living flesh and half rotting corpse. But her realm is not a place of fire, brimstone, and demonic torment. It is not a punishment for sin.
So what is it like?
It is simply a shadowy, damp, somewhat dreary continuation of existence. It was just where the dead went. It was seen as an underworld of mist and stillness.
There are also these incredibly creepy, deep-rooted folk beliefs recorded in the sagas about the dead not even going to hell.
The burial mound beliefs.
Right, they just remain in their mounds. You read these stories of grave mounds glowing at night with spectral fire.
Or the Draugr.
The Draugr. The dead men sitting up inside their tombs, retaining their physical bodies, fiercely guarding their treasures from grave robbers.
Sometimes even walking back to their farmhouses to torment the living.
The Norse afterlife was incredibly bodily. It wasn't just a soul floating away to the clouds. The physical corpse maintained a connection to the spirit.
Exactly.
Think about how this cosmological framework translates to human behavior. If you've ever watched modern pop culture depictions of this era, like the show Vikings or The Last Kingdom.
You constantly see characters who are terrified of dying peacefully in bed.
Yes. They get a sickness, or they get old, and they are desperate. They beg someone to put a sword in their hand as they bleed out, or they try to pick a fight they can't win. Now we know why.
If you die of an illness, you suffer what they called a straw death.
A straw death.
Yes. You go to the shadowy, boring realm of hell. You miss out on the glorious feast. You miss out on fighting alongside the gods in the final battle at the end of the world. The cosmology literally drove them to seek out violent ends.
But if missing out on Valhalla was such a terrifying prospect that it drove grown men to throw themselves onto spears, it begs a massive philosophical question.
Which is?
Did the Norse actually believe they had a choice in the matter?
Free will versus fate.
Right. Did they believe their free will determined whether they died in a shield wall or died of a cough, or was their time of death already stamped on some cosmic calendar?
That is the perfect question to ask. And it brings us to the heaviest, most defining concept of this entire deep dive.
Let's get into it.
Let's return to the roots of Yggdrasil. Let's return to the Well of Erd, the Well of Fate.
The Norns.
Beside this well sit three incredibly ancient, powerful beings called the Norns. Their names are Erd, Verdandi, and Skuld.
What do those names mean?
They roughly translate to what once was, what is coming into being, and what shall be. Effectively past, present, and future.
Okay.
And what the Norns do constantly is weave. They spin the threads, measure them, and cut them. They are weaving the destiny, the wired, of every single living being in the cosmos.
So everything is mapped out from the start.
Everything. From the exact day a child is born, the length of their thread is set.
Wow.
And this is the staggering fact that sets Norse mythology apart from almost every other system we study. Even the gods are subject to fate.
The gods can't change it.
The Norns weave the destiny of the gods just as they weave the destiny of a human farmer. The gods cannot command the Norns. They cannot change the threads.
Which means Odin knows his fate.
He knows it with terrifying, absolute certainty. There is a famous poem, the Voluspa, where Osiris lays out the entire history and future of the world for Odin.
What does she tell him?
She tells him that Ragnarok is coming. The great winter will fall, the sun will be swallowed by a wolf, the stars will fall from the sky, and the realms will burn.
And Odin himself.
During that final battle, Odin knows that he will face the great, monstrous wolf Fenrir, and he knows that he will be swallowed whole and devoured.
That is just bleak. He spent his entire existence frantically gathering wisdom. He rips out his eye, he hangs himself, he breaks oaths to build fortresses.
He scours the cosmos for magic.
Building this massive army of human warriors in Valhalla, preparing every single day, and yet he knows it won't be enough.
He knows he is going to lose.
The gods will die, his fate is fixed, and no amount of preparation can allow him to escape it.
It is incredibly tragic.
So, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
As a modern person, if you told me, hey, I know exactly how you're going to die, I know exactly when it's going to happen, and no matter how hard you fight, no matter what you do, you absolutely cannot stop it.
You'd give up.
I feel like I would just give up. Wouldn't a belief system like that make a society incredibly passive?
It seems like it would.
If the threads are already woven, why bother trying to be a great warrior? Why train? Why not just sit in your farmhouse, drink mead, and wait for the end? Doesn't this level of fatalism breed total apathy?
It's a completely logical assumption from a modern perspective. We equate lack of control with pointlessness.
Right.
But the ancient Norse drew the exact opposite conclusion. Their philosophy was incredibly stark. If you truly believe that you cannot control whether you die or when you die, then the only thing left in the entire universe that you actually control is how you die.
Oh, wow. You control the attitude of your death.
Exactly that. If the day of your death is already marked on the cosmic calendar by the Norns, then there's absolutely no point in running away from a battle.
Because if it's your day, you die anyway.
Exactly. Maybe you trip and break your neck while running away, and if it is not your day to die, you could charge naked into a wall of hundreds of spears and you will survive. The outcome is fixed.
Therefore, fear of death is completely irrational.
The only rational response to a fated universe is absolute courage. The gods, knowing they will die at Ragnarok, don't surrender to the giants. They march out onto the battlefield anyway to meet their doom with weapons drawn.
You control your honor. You control your reputation. You control whether the poets sing about how you stood your ground when the overwhelming odds came crashing down.
Fate takes everything from you except your choice of how to face it. It didn't breed passivity. It bred absolute, unapologetic ferocity. The fame of a dead man's deeds was the only true immortality they believed in.
That is profound. It completely flips the script on fate. Let me give a concrete example of this from the source material, because there is a legendary saga story that captures this cultural ideal perfectly.
I think I know which one you mean.
It's the story of Ragnar Lothbrok.
A classic defining example of the Norse ethos.
According to the legend, and, well, whether this is historically 100% accurate or a later literary embellishment almost doesn't matter, because it represents the cultural ideal they aspired to. Ragnar is finally captured by his enemy, King Aelle of Northumbria.
His luck runs out.
His execution is ordered, and he is thrown into a deep, dark pit filled with venomous snakes.
A terrible way to go.
Now, most people in that situation would scream. They would panic, beg for mercy, or weep in agony as the fangs sank in.
Truly.
But Ragnar doesn't. He laughs.
He embraces the moment.
As the venom is literally pumping through his veins, swelling his flesh, he supposedly recites an epic poem.
Oh.
He boasts about his glorious, violent life.
He mocks his captors.
He tells them how fiercely his sons, the little pigs, will avenge the old boar. And he says he dies laughing because he knows the Valkyries are waiting to take him to Odin's hall.
He laughs in the face of agonizing, inevitable death.
Because his fate was sealed, the pain didn't matter. The only thing he had left was his courage, his defiance, and he owned it completely.
It is the ultimate expression of Norse agency within a fated system. And yet there is a fascinating contradiction built into this culture.
What's the contradiction?
If fate is fixed and unchangeable, people still naturally desperately want to know what it is. They want to glimpse the threads before they unravel. And this brings us to the practice of cider and the figure of the vulva.
The Seus.
A vulva was a female practitioner of Norse magic, specifically a type of magic called cider. This involved entering deep trance states, journeying to other realms, prophecy, and seeing into the woven threads of fate to tell people their destinies or to manipulate the weather and crop yields.
Now, culturally, this was deeply, strictly gendered, right?
Yes. Cider was considered women's magic. It was a highly respected yet slightly feared role for a woman to travel from town to town, sitting on a high platform, delivering prophecies to a chieftain and his hall.
But for a man to practice it, that was a different story entirely.
For a male warrior in this hyper-masculine society to practice cider, it was considered ergi.
Ergi. Unmanly.
Deeply unmanly, severely taboo, and shameful. It carried implications of submissiveness that completely violated the social codes of a Norse male. A man accused of ergi could legally kill his accuser to defend his honor.
That's how serious the accusation was.
Desi serious.
But Odin did it. The chief of the gods, the patron of warriors and kings, practiced ergi magic.
He did. Odin actually learned cider from the goddess Freya.
Did the other gods care?
Oh, in one of the poems, Loki actually mocks Odin in front of all the gods, taunting him for beating a drum like a witch and acting unmanly.
And this shows you just how desperately hungry Odin was for knowledge. He was willing to cross the strictest cultural taboos, to take on profound social shame, just to get a glimpse of the fate that awaited him and his children.
Exactly.
Is there a specific myth where we see Odin using this magic?
Yes, in a poem called Baldur's Dreams, Odin's son, Baldur, starts having terrible nightmares of his own death. Odin is so terrified that he rides his 8-legged horse all the way down to the misty borders of hell.
Going to the underworld.
He finds the ancient grave of a dead vulva, a seeress, and using his magic, he literally forces her corpse to rise from the dirt, compelling the dead woman to speak and interpret his son's dreams. He has to know the feat.
He drags a woman out of the grave just to tell him what he already fears.
Yes.
And you see this dynamic in the human stories all the time. Characters are terrified of the seeress, but they climb up to her cave or invite her to their hall anyway. They need to know what the Norns have woven for them.
But the profound tragedy of Norse myth is that knowing your fate never, ever allows you to escape it.
Usually, the desperate actions you take to avoid your prophesied fate are the very actions that cause it to happen.
You cannot outmaneuver the Norns. You can only walk toward the doom they have woven for you, with your head held high, hoping you leave a good story behind.
Okay, let's take a breath, step back, and look at the massive, intricate stage we've built today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started with a charged void of fire and ice. We witnessed the brutal murder of a primordial giant whose corpse became the very earth, oceans, and sky.
We watched driftwood become humanity.
We climbed the immense world tree, Yggdrasil, feeling it slowly rock while holding up the universe, complete with its eagle, its serpent, and its gloriously petty squirrel.
We toured the 9 worlds, from the bloody, oath-breaking fortress of Asgard to the depths of the dwarves' forges and the misty realms of the dead.
And we confronted the terrifying, beautiful reality of the Norns, weaving inescapable destinies that force gods and humans alike to choose raw courage over fear.
It is a stunning, cohesive, cosmic architecture. And when we summarize it like this, understanding the psychological weight of this doomed, decaying universe, we can see the sheer magnitude of the culture clash that was on the horizon for these people.
The clash with Christianity.
Yes, the very lens that ended up recording these myths.
Think about the fundamental jarring differences between the Norse cosmos we just explored and the Christian cosmos that would eventually arrive in Scandinavia.
It's night and day. The Norse worldview features a universe that is fundamentally decaying. It is destined to end in fire and ice at Ragnarok. Even the gods die, eaten by wolves and serpents. And the ultimate virtue in that system is fighting bravely in a battle you know you are going to lose.
Compared to the incoming Christian worldview, which featured an all-powerful, eternal, unkillable creator. It offered the promise of a final victory where good triumphs over evil forever and the hope of eternal, peaceful salvation.
It wasn't just a political shift or swapping one god's name for another, like swapping Odin for Jesus. It was a complete collision of how reality itself functions.
A total paradigm shift.
It was a shift from a doomed, entropic universe where you fight until you die to a saved, purposeful universe where your soul rests. It changed the entire psychological foundation of the culture.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds on the philosophy we've talked about today.
Go.
In our modern world, we spend so much of our energy, our money, and our daily anxiety trying to control our outcomes. We obsess over safety. We buy comprehensive insurance for everything. We read health blogs, track our sleep, and monitor our diets.
We try to pad every sharp corner.
We try to pad every sharp corner of our lives to avoid disaster, acting as if we can somehow cheat death or avoid misfortune if we just plan perfectly enough and retain total control. But imagine, just for a moment, if you truly, deep in your bones, believed what the ancient Norse believed.
Imagine if you knew that your ultimate end was already written in stone by 3 women at a cosmic well.
And no amount of safety planning, worrying, or hiding could change it by a single second. Would that fatalism paralyze you with a sense of futility?
Or would the total loss of control completely liberate you?
Freeing you to finally live your life with unapologetic boldness without any fear at all?
It's a powerful question that challenges everything about how we live today.
It is. Next time you're out for a walk and you see a massive ancient tree, look up at the branches. Look down at the roots. Think about what might be hanging there in the unseen scaffolding of the world. Until next time.